forward and get this right. So I want to express my sincere appreciation for her leadership and partnership in making this day a reality. The Borough President of Manhattan, Gale Brewer.
Thank you very much, Commissioner, and thank you for always being there to say we can work it out. That's always been the mantra of your commissionership, and it's really appreciated. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Great.
So I have to just start, like others, by thanking two people, Pam Elam and Colleen Jenkins, because they are the ones that have made this possible. Pam and I have been friends for 40 years. I know exactly how strenuous she is when she is committed to a cause. You have no friggin' idea. I just follow without her determination, and also Colleen, we would not be here. And I want to thank Penelope Cox in my office, who also walked the walk in terms of going up and down the park. There are a lot of women's organizations here, but Pauline Toole, who's commissioner of our municipal archives, I want to thank her because she's been doing a lot of this work. And I won't get them all, but I know that the Women's City Club is here, I know NOW is here, I know National Women's Political Caucus is here, and the women of Local 1 who read the Constitution every night. That's yeah. We all want to thank the Girl Scouts. They were able to recite things that at whatever young age they are that even adults don't know. And they are more energetic about this cause than many adults. So Girl Scouts, thank you very, very much. So the commissioner is right. We started around 3 years ago discussing this, and we found different spots in the park that we did not like. And we really appreciate the fact that working with the Conservancy and the park. Oh God, Ruth Messenger just walked in. So it's a 100th anniversary of women winning the right to vote in New York. I wish I could say that the fight was over, but we know it's not. True equality is still something we need to fight for, as Lieutenant Governor indicated. But 100 years later, we have made progress, still fighting, but we're following in the footsteps like Stanton and Anthony. And it's a fight to be seen and heard as equals. And I have to say, being here today, when you think it'll be built, it'll be done right because of the people who are gathered here. And then young Girl Scouts, young students, young men and women will be gathered around to learn the history that unfortunately is not taught always in our schools. And that's another purpose for this statute. It's not just to look at, it's to participate in the education. So it's 164 history. For the first time in Central Park, there will be a statue of real women. And people will come to see Elizabeth Cady Stanton, they'll come to see Susan B. Anthony, but there will be the listing of all the other women suffragettes on the monument itself. So it's not just about them, because it's not about me, it's not about the Lieutenant Governor, it's not about the Congresswoman, it's about everybody here in this room and beyond. We have a lot of people to thank for the progress we have made. So the battle to memorialize these suffragettes was almost a reenactment of their fight for recognition, to be honest with you. Now, you will say, of course, that the suffragette movement in New York lasted about 70 years, and it took us about 3 to 5 years. So there's a little bit of a difference, but it still felt like 70 years. I can't tell you how rewarding it is to finally be here in the park, seeing the spot where our women will watch over us. We're in the mall. We can know that and I hope, Doug, I have this number correctly, but there are 42 million people who visit Central Park every single year. And the Conservancy and the Parks Department and all their volunteers and staff keep the park going, but many, many millions will walk by and talk about real women as a result of the efforts of the people here. We know that too much of our history has been lost or left unrecognized, and here would be just one example of how to rectify that. New York is where so many movements started. Shirley Chisholm was the first African-American woman in Congress, and there are many more firsts that have taken place. And I think if equality was easy, it would have happened already. So, as Maya Angelou said, we may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. So the women who want us the right to vote, who organized and marched for decades, certainly encountered defeats, but they were never defeated, and nor will we ever be defeated. Thank you very much.
welcome, as I mentioned earlier, a dear friend to the park, our dear friend, Congresswoman Carolyn.
I am so absolutely thrilled to be here today to celebrate with so many people that made this happen. This could literally be a turning point in the women's movement, because in our green, our city green, right behind us, we're going to have the first statue of real women to ever be erected in our great Central Park. This is a great achievement. We have statues of Alice in Wonderland, Mother Goose, all these other lyrical, fictional characters, but not the real contributions of great women leaders that gave their life to empower women with the right to vote. And I was thinking, I'm not surprised that there's such an anti-woman movement in Congress, where harassment up until recently was treated almost like part of the job. When you reported rape and harassment, they never did anything. Now all of a sudden they're waking up and they say they're going to prosecute and that they're going to stop it. Well, let's see. But it's hard to really make a point if you're not even recognized. And women's history literally is not recognized. Even though here in New York, we were the lightning rod. We were the heart and soul of the women's movement in the whole nation. And to know that our my favorite feminist leader, really, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and then Susan B. Anthony, and 28 of the other women, including Alice Paul, the author of the Equal Rights Amendment, are finally going to be recognized. It is really a monumental achievement, and I cannot thank my dear friend who's descended from Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Can you imagine having that role model in your own life? Coleman Jenkins, who kept pushing this, and Pam Elam, and all of our colleagues in the Stanton and Anthony Statue Fund. This has really been a passion and a commitment of your lives. But it doesn't happen, as they say, it takes a village. We had to have a mayor who said yes. So thank you, Mayor de Blasio. We had to have a Parks Commissioner who said, yes, I'll work with you. We had to have a Central Park Conservancy headed by Doug Lincoln, helping us and saying yes. It would not have happened without them and without my great colleagues in government, our great Lieutenant Governor. I can tell you firsthand, since we lived together, that she is a remarkable public servant, totally committed. Even brushing the teeth, we were talking public policy. And Gale Brewer, what would the city be like without Gale Brewer? To see you here, and Rosenthal, all the leaders, and let's talk about the funders. New York Life. And most people don't know this. Susan B. Anthony worked for this great New York firm. She was a life insurance person. So they are making this grant, which I think is so absolutely incredible. You know, New York achieved the right to vote on this day in 1917, nearly 3 years before the 19th Amendment was ratified. We were the only northern state to do so, and the only one of the original 13 colonies. Talk about lighting a trail. I am proud that Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton were New Yorkers, and that they published a suffrage newspaper here in the city, and the great Pam Elam was able to get a street sign erected near where their office once stood at 37 Park Row. We should be proud of New York. Two of the great movements for human rights came from New York. The women's rights movement out of Seneca Falls, and Stonewall, out of Stonewall, downtown New York. And the other great civil rights movement, of course, was the human rights, the anti-discrimination movement out of Selma, Alabama, really led by Martin Luther King. So I am so proud that we are erecting a statue to say thank you to all these wonderful women who fought for our right to vote. And they said we will use that vote to get all of our other powers. And I remember one of them reading their papers, probably Cady Stanton. She wrote, if we don't watch out, we'll be back at Seneca Falls 150 years later, and we still will not have the Equal Rights Amendment. So we must keep our eye on the ball. It's this simple. If you want equal pay for equal work, it's got to be enforced. It's got to be the law of the land that cannot be rolled back, overturned, and changed. We need the Equal Rights Amendment. And I've spent 3/4 of my time in Congress holding on to rights that we already won. With the brush of a pen, they tried to overturn Title IX in Congress. They tried to overturn it in the Supreme Court. And Obama finally put instructions in to protect women against sexual violence on campuses. With the stroke of a pen, it's been repealed. This happens all the time, constant efforts to roll back and chip away at the right of choice. So the only way we're protected is to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. And we should think in our own lives, what are we going to do? How are we going to spend our time that any way comes close to what these women did? They were force-fed, they were arrested, they were ridiculed, they were put in insane asylums for thinking that women should have the right to vote. And I'm going to come here and get my inspiration when I walk in the park on beautiful days like today from them as I continue to fight to get the Equal Rights Amendment passed and ratified. Why is it so difficult? It should be like a glass of water in the morning. We all say we're for equality, but try to pass it. Try to make that protection the law so that women can sue when they're raped if the DA or someone else doesn't do anything about a charge brought to them. It is a right that would help us enforce equal pay for equal work. Without it, we'll never get there. That gives us the right to enforce it. But today, this is a monumental achievement. Look at all the work and dedication and love that went into making this happen. And I thank everyone that made it happen. I think that you are part of a great turning point right now in attitudes for women. We don't even have a museum dedicated to the achievements of women. And this is one of the first monuments and statues in our great country that is dedicated to women that made a difference in making this country better. Let's build on their example and be inspired by the women that made it happen. Thank you all. I am thrilled. I couldn't be happier, and I am emboldened and strengthened by what you've been able to achieve today. Thank you.